In our headlines on this Monday, January 20th, here in South Korea. President Yoon continues to remain absent from questioning sessions at the Anti-Corruption Office, even following a formal arrest authorized in the wee hours of Sunday by a local court that was stormed by pro-Yoon protesters following its order. Meanwhile, over in the U.S., preparations are in place for the inauguration of a second Donald Trump administration come Monday local time, as the president-elect earlier vows to make the best first day the biggest first week and the most extraordinary first 100 days of any U.S. presidency. And in the Middle East, a 60-day ceasefire takes effect between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas as of Sunday, paving the path for phased exchanges of hostages for prisoners, with the first such transaction seeing the release of 3 female Israelis and 90 Palestinian prisoners. We start with the latest at the Seoul Detention Center, where President Yoon is being held after a court ordered his formal arrest in the wee hours of this past Sunday. For more, I have our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon standing by live on site. Do-yeon, welcome. Now, I hear the president has continued to refrain from cooperating with the investigation led by anti-corruption officials.
That's right, Sunny. As you said, I'm standing here in front of Seoul Detention Center, where President Yoon has been detained since last week and has been refusing to be taken to the CIO for more questioning. Now, just to get you the sense of how the scenes are here, to my right are about a couple hundred supporters of Yoon, while to my left are people against Yoon and actually in support of the CIO. Now, as we're talking about, Yoon has only shown up to CIO once since he was detained last Wednesday and has refused for any of the additional questions, saying there is nothing more to share. Therefore, the CIO is now looking at its options, primarily 2 of them. Because President Yoon is under detention, the CIO can be more forceful when it comes to bringing Yoon in. But there needs to be a careful review of relevant laws before taking this route. On the other hand, the CIO investigators and prosecutors could themselves come here to the detention center. Of course, Yoon has said that this arrest is not legal yet again and will likely continue to refuse to be questioned and even file for another legality review of this current arrest.
Right, I see. Do-yeon, over the course of this past weekend, the president went from being a temporary detainee to becoming a criminal suspect. Could you tell us more?
Right, Sonny. Over the weekend, the CIO was able to get an arrest warrant that extended his detention to early February. And that means the CIO and the prosecutors can have him here at the Seoul Detention Center and question more for further investigations. He is now dressed in a detention center issued uniform with an inmate number assigned to him. Considering his status, he will have a separate cell and guards will try to isolate him from other inmates. According to the Justice Ministry, he's had a mugshot taken and a body search, the same procedure as anyone else who has been arrested. And while Yoon uses his legal rights to delay the investigation even further under this new arrest warrant, the CIO is also using its legal options to pressure President Yoon. Except for Yoon's attorneys, he'll be not allowed to have any visitors until a formal prosecution begins for this case. The CIO cited the risk of evidence being destroyed as a reason, and remember that this is the exact reason why the court issued this official arrest warrant. Of course, Yoon has called this ban just a way to push him around, saying if there is reasonable evidence obtained by the CIO to issue this warrant, how could he destroy any with any of the personal visits?
Right. Do-yeon, I believe in the meantime, a search warrant is in effect at a safe house. Could you tell us more?
Tony, that's right. The search and seizure warrant that was issued last month is still valid, and the police executed the warrant earlier today. Now, what they could be looking at are the CCTV footage in and out of the safe house to see who was in contact with President Yoon on the night of the declaration of martial law. In addition, the search and seizure of the presidential office is for the Presidential Security Services Office, where they hold the service for the CCTVs. That's all for now. Back to you, Sonny.
All right, Thoeun, thank you for the latest with regard to the president's arrest and investigation. That was our Kim Do-yeon reporting live from the Seoul Detention Center. Meanwhile, the country's Supreme Court earlier on this Monday condemned Sunday's acts of violence by the president's hardline supporters at the Seoul Western District Court following its order for a formal arrest of President Yoon Byungs. Our Kim Bo-kyung has the latest.
Justices expressed concerns over the attack on Seoul Western District Court by protesters on Sunday, saying no country would be able to survive if extreme actions disregarding the rule of law become normalized. This came during the emergency meeting presided by the Supreme Court Chief Justice on Monday morning. There, justices emphasized that any attempted acts of terrorism against individual judges or trials are not only a complete denial of the rule of law, but could also be considered acts of defiance against all constitutional institutions. The Court Administration Office has announced that the specific damage to the court, including exterior walls, windows, shutters, and other items, is estimated to be approximately 600 to 700 million Korean won, which is a little less than $500,000. Choi Sang-mok, the acting president too, voiced strong regret over the attack.
Democracy begins with abiding by the law. To persuade others, one must first follow the law themselves.
The court faced an unprecedented attack on Sunday after it issued President Yoon's formal arrest warrant at around 3 a.m. Angry supporters stormed into the court, heading to the back entrance when blocked by police at the front gate. Some smashed windows using stones and fire extinguishers to enter the court. Inside, they sprayed fire extinguishers, vandalized televisions and ATMs along with other items, and even ransacked a judge's chambers looking for Judge Cha Eun-kyung, who was responsible for the decision to issue the warrant. The protesters were only dispersed 3 hours later at around 6 a.m. after a large police force was deployed. Responding to the attack on the Seoul Western District Court, police and the prosecution said they will deal sternly with all of the protesters who were involved in violent acts, citing their attack as grave crimes that undermine the rule of law and the judicial system. According to the police on Monday, a total of 90 individuals were apprehended in the act over the weekend for illegal activities at Seoul Western District Court and the Constitutional Court. Meanwhile, the Seoul Western District Court returned to normal operations on Monday, though vehicle access is restricted and identity verification is required to enter. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Now, come tomorrow, that is Tuesday, the third hearing of the impeachment case against the president takes place. That being said, efforts are underway to ensure protection for the justices at the Constitutional Court in light of the violent displays of discontent at the Seoul Western District Court in the early hours of Sunday morning. Our Oh Soo-young has details.
The Constitutional Court will beef up security for justices ahead of President Yoon Suk-yeol's third impeachment trial hearing on Tuesday, while the leader remains detained under extended custody. On Monday, court press officer Chun Jae-yeon said due to violence over the weekend caused by protesters in support of the president outside the Seoul Western District Court, the Constitutional Court has devised enhanced security measures. Chun said the justices will be accompanied by police, and security screening at the courtroom entrance will be intensified. The court has also added more security personnel and is operating an emergency standby system during and outside working hours, along with additional police reinforcement. This marks the first time for a sitting South Korean leader to face impeachment under formal arrest, after the Seoul Western District Court approved Yoon's extended detention for further questioning by investigators. Yoon's lawyers have said the president was planning to attend the hearing at an appropriate time to defend himself. However, he skipped the first hearing last Tuesday, citing the attempted execution of an arrest warrant. He also missed the second hearing on Thursday, as he was being detained for questioning at the time. Thus, Yoon's lawyers are likely to argue for more time, saying that his prolonged arrest infringes his right to attend his ongoing trial. His team has previously filed 2 requests to delay the hearings, both of which the court rejected. Press officer Chun said Monday that the court cannot reveal at this stage whether the president will attend a hearing, but it has not yet received requests for security arrangements. She added the court will determine the conditions under which Yoon may argue his case during the proceedings. Also, regarding the possible suspension of the impeachment case, as investigations into his alleged insurrection pick up pace with his arrest. Chun said it is difficult to confirm whether the justices have discussed the matter, adding that no related documents have been submitted by President Yoon's team. Article 51 of the Constitutional Court Act allows for the suspension of an impeachment trial when a criminal investigation based on the same grounds is ongoing.
As President Yoon's impeachment trial unfolds under unprecedented circumstances, the Constitutional Court faces mounting challenges in ensuring fair trial proceedings and protection amid political and social unrest, as well as potential delays caused by simultaneous legal proceedings. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
In less than 24 hours, the U.S. ushers in a second Trump administration. Our Ising-jae covers the upcoming inauguration ceremony slated for Monday, local time.
In less than a day, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump will be sworn into office and return to the White House 4 years after his election defeat to Joe Biden. 4 days of inauguration-related events kicked off on Saturday with a reception and fireworks at his golf club in Virginia, with around 500 people in attendance. On Sunday, he visited Arlington National Cemetery and laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. And due to the extreme winter conditions in the U.S. Capitol, the Inauguration Day ceremony will take place indoors at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. Monday is expected to be the coldest Inauguration Day in 40 years, with temperatures forecast to dip to -5 degrees Celsius, with winds blowing up to 48 kilometers per hour due to an Arctic vortex in the region. After Trump is sworn into office, he will make his inauguration speech before events close on Tuesday with a prayer service at Washington National Cathedral. Despite the extreme winter conditions, supporters of Trump came to celebrate his return with the Make America Great Again victory rally taking place on Sunday.
I got here at 5 in the morning. Yeah, and tomorrow the same. I was going to go out there now because of the freezing cold. I don't care. I've got to do it. I've got to do it now. I can't wait to dance that YMCA dance. I'm practicing. I'm hoping Trump will wave back. And yeah.
The rally took place at the Capital One Arena in Washington, where Trump held his pre-inauguration address. There, Trump promised to usher in a new era of American prosperity, adding that on Monday, the country will begin a brand new day of American strength, prosperity, dignity, and pride. Meanwhile, video sharing platform TikTok said Sunday it was restoring its service. The move comes after Trump said he would reverse a ban on the app when he returns to the Oval Office. TikTok said in a message to users that the service would be restored as a result of President Trump's effort. In an interview with NBC News' Meet the Press on Saturday, Trump said he would most likely give the platform a 90-day reprieve from a potential ban in the U.S. once he takes office. While a final decision hasn't been made, the soon-to-be U.S. leader is considering the extension for the China-based parent company to sell to a non-Chinese buyer or face a U.S. ban. TikTok stopped working in the U.S. on Saturday before a law shutting it down on the grounds of national security took effect on Sunday. Washington had warned of Americans' data being misused by Chinese parent company ByteDance. Ising-jae, Arirang News.
And U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has pledged to promote an America First trade policy. So what does this mean for its trade partners like South Korea? Our business correspondent Moon Hae-ryun takes a look.
As U.S. President Donald Trump takes office for his second term, his aggressive trade policies, particularly targeting China, are raising concerns worldwide. Trump has signaled plans for sweeping tariffs, including additional levies on Chinese imports, as part of his broader protectionist strategy, aiming to shift global trade dynamics and strengthen U.S. leverage. However, such policies have raised alarm in countries like South Korea, heavily reliant on exports. For South Korea, Trump's trade war with China poses both risks and opportunities across a wide range of industries. Advanced technology sectors such as semiconductors could face increased barriers to trade as a result of the U.S.-China tensions. Trump's protectionist policies have also triggered concerns surrounding potential amendments to the Inflation Reduction Act and whether Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, as beneficiaries of the Chips and Science Act, could be affected. Experts say that while anything that has already been signed into contract is safe, possible future subsidies could be at risk. But the U.S. also stands to be negatively impacted as a result.
If President Trump really wants to use tariffs to induce semiconductor investment in the United States, tariffs has to be higher than 20%. And if the tariff for semiconductors do go that high, then it probably will hurt the United States more than help it.
The steel and automobile industries could also be affected as they have been historically important for the U.S. economy.
They have been really important in the U.S. economy, especially by taking important roles in creating jobs for a long time, but have lost their competitiveness in the global market. So the Trump administration is expected to implement higher tariffs on the goods that experience large trade deficits.
On the upside, some sectors in South Korea could benefit from Trump's tariffs. For instance, industries like electric vehicles and batteries, where South Korea has a strong presence, may see increased demand as countries look to diversify their supply chains and reduce reliance on China. South Korea's plans to boost its eco-friendly vehicle sector and advance battery technology through significant investments, as announced by Acting President and Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok earlier last week, may position it as a global leader in these fields. There is also growing anticipation that U.S. sanctions on China's shipbuilding sector will benefit South Korea's shipbuilding companies as they gain a competitive edge. As Trump's trade policies take shape, South Korea's industries and government will need to stay agile, balancing the potential risks and rewards in this evolving trade landscape. 문혜련, Arirang News.
On the security front, the incoming Trump administration is expected to call on South Korea to shoulder a greater burden, the cost of maintaining U.S. soldiers here in the country. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji reports.
Trump's approach to foreign policy is largely focused on the idea of putting America first. To do this, he's appointed hardliners to help him shape foreign policy in the new administration, including Secretary of State nominee Marco Rubio, who's taken hardline positions against China and North Korea. At his Senate confirmation hearing last week, Rubio emphasized that placing the interest of America above all else has never been more necessary than it is now.
Placing our core national interest above all else is not isolationism. It is the common sense realization that a foreign policy centered in our national interest is not some outdated relic.
The America First policy has led to the biggest problem that South Korea is facing, that Trump could renegotiate the deal on sharing the cost needed for American troops in Korea. During his campaign, Trump said if he was at the White House, South Korea would be paying the United States $10 billion a year, calling South Korea a money machine.
So it is pretty clear that after he returned to the White House, and he will make a relationship based on the cost-benefit calculation, especially for South Korea. Trump already mentioned several times that he is increasing the cost sharing for South Korea, so it's going to be another daunting challenge for South Korean security and in terms of relationship between these two countries.
With regard to relations with North Korea, there is a possibility that Trump might pursue nuclear talks with Kim Jong-un. During his first term, Trump held 3 summits with Kim, but the talks ended without any breakthroughs. Then, on the campaign trail, Trump claimed that Kim misses him, implying that the regime would not be acting up once he returns to office.
Look, I had a very good relationship with President Xi, and a very good relationship with Putin, and a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un, who is a nuclear force that you won't even believe.
Trump recently named a close aide, Richard Grenell, as his presidential envoy for special missions, and Alex Wong, who handled negotiations with North Korea during Trump's first term in office as Deputy National Security Advisor. South Korea's intelligence agency now believes that Trump's recent appointments of top aides on North Korean issues further indicate a willingness to explore diplomatic talks. It recently assessed that if the Trump administration comes to a conclusion that complete denuclearization of North Korea is impossible in the near future, it could seek to take actions in the form of a small deal, such as nuclear disarmament or arms reduction. With less than a day left until Trump's inauguration, eyes are now on how his America First agenda will reshape international politics. As critics say, his foreign policy could dismantle democratic norms and a decades-old international order. 배은지, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the broader diplomatic front, raging wars, including that in Ukraine amid Russian invasion, look to top the list of foreign policy initiatives for the incoming Trump administration. Our Choi Min-jung has more.
The incoming U.S. President Donald Trump was once confident that he could end the 3-year-long war between Ukraine and Russia in just 24 hours. This ambitious claim raised concerns that he might pressure Ukraine to concede territory to achieve a swift resolution. This comes as Russia currently occupies around a fifth of Ukraine's territory, including Crimea and the areas of Donetsk and Luhansk that were taken before 2022. However, a subtle shift in Trump's stance has been observed since his election victory. Earlier this month, he adjusted his timeline, saying he hopes to achieve peace within 6 months. While he still emphasizes the need to end the war in Ukraine quickly, he also appears to be taking a cautious approach, stressing the importance of Ukraine's territorial integrity. However, an expert says negotiations will be difficult under Trump unless Ukraine gives up territory.
In my view, that's how it will ultimately turn out. Ukraine will have to make many concessions, not just territorial ones. It will likely have to give up territory, agree to neutrality, and abandon its NATO ambitions.
Another war Trump pledged to end is the war in Gaza. Ahead of his inauguration, Trump warned of serious consequences if the hostages were not returned.
If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East. And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out.
Trump himself and some experts believe that his pressure has clearly played out in a productive way, as Israel and Hamas agreed on a 3-phase ceasefire and hostage release deal last week. He told NBC News at the weekend that the deal better hold. What experts are more worried about is the long-term sustainability of the deal.
It's a 3-phased agreement that from 16 days into the first phase, which is going to last for 6 weeks, is going to already require negotiations to get to the second phase. A lot of the details of the second phase and the release of further hostages and Palestinian prisoners have not been agreed upon. The terms and conditions of Israel's withdrawal from Gaza also remain unclear.
Another expert says that a mechanism is needed to ensure Israel observes and respects the terms of the deal.
These could include independent monitoring system, clearly defined consequences for violations, and sustained diplomatic engagement to address lingering issues such as settlement expansion or territorial disputes that could reignite the tension.
With bold promises and high stakes, 2025 will be the ultimate test of whether Trump can turn his words into lasting peace in Ukraine and Gaza. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
And in the Middle East, a 60-day truce has taken effect in Gaza between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas as of Sunday, paving the path for phased exchanges of hostages for prisoners. Our Ian Jin covers the first such exchange in months.
Sunday was the first day of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire that has halted 15 months of war. On the same day, the first 3 Israeli hostages of the 33 that were agreed to be released under the terms of the ceasefire deal were freed by Hamas. The International Committee of the Red Cross facilitated the transfer, escorting the 3 women to an Israeli military checkpoint. Upon arrival, they were reunited with their families and transported to a medical center for examination, where the director said all 3 were in stable condition. Romy Gonen, Doron Steinbrecher, and Emily Damari were abducted on October 7th near a kibbutz and music festival during the Hamas attack.
In Tel Aviv, thousands of people erupted in applause as they gathered to watch the news on large screens. The office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also released a video showing him receiving news about the return of the 3 hostages. Just over 7 hours later, the first of the Palestinian prisoners were released. Around 90 Palestinian prisoners and detainees were freed from Israeli jails into the occupied West Bank, arriving by bus to scenes of cheering and celebration. They had been detained for what Israel called offenses related to its security. This was the first of several hostage and detainee exchanges set to take place during the ceasefire over the next 6 weeks. The agreement reached in Qatar last week with the help of mediators calls for Hamas to release 33 hostages, including women, children, men over 50, and ill and wounded captives, while Israel is set to release more than 1,900 Palestinian prisoners. While Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in a statement that the government is committed to the return of all 98 hostages, major questions remain about whether fighting will resume after the 6-week first phase of the ceasefire. 이은진, Arirang News.
Even though today's Taehan, which means severe cold on the traditional seasonal calendar, there are no worries about the cold throughout the day. The morning temperature in Seoul was 3.1 degrees Celsius, far above the average level. It rose to 8 degrees during the day, feeling as mild as early March. We'll see very similar weather conditions tomorrow across the country. However, with milder conditions, the ultrafine dust has become a problem again. In particular, for the first time this winter, preliminary measures to reduce the high concentration of fine dust were issued in Chungcheongnam-do province to reduce fine dust in this area. The air will continue to be bad all over the country tomorrow. Tomorrow's Seoul will start off at 0 degrees, Chuncheon and Gyeongju at -4 degrees. Highs will move up to 9 degrees in Gwangju, Daegu will reach 10 degrees. For the remainder of the week, it will be milder than usual. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.